BBC Radio Derby.
Make a difference.
So after 2:15 then on your Tuesday afternoon, let me introduce you to my guest who's sitting in the studio this afternoon. A 41-year-old dad from Mickleover is hoping a crowdfunding campaign will make a huge difference to his life and the things he can do with his 4-year-old daughter. Daniel T has Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, which affects connective tissues, causing joint dislocations, widespread pain and chronic fatigue, to name just a few of the challenges it brings. He's also been dealing with functional neurological disorder since 2014, which can cause leg weakness, sensory disturbance, and occasional full body paralysis. Dan would love to buy an off-roading wheelchair, which would make a difference for him to be able to do more active things and have adventures with his very active 4-year-old daughter. And Dan T is in the studio with me now. Good afternoon.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Really nice to meet you. I mean, I've given a kind of list there, and in actual fact, it only kind of touches the surface of everything you're dealing with.
Yeah, there's quite a few different things really that, like you say, there's a range of different things that Ehlers-Danlos can affect in your body. It's basically it's the joints, but it's also it can affect your organs as well, and your skin, various different things. People can have really stretchy skin as well, and like you say, the widespread pain and the fatigue. Those are the two things that I struggle with the most.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, what are the biggest challenges? I wanted to get a sense of the challenges you face on a day-to-day basis and the frustrations as well, because you were a very active person. So I guess that's the main frustration, to suddenly go from someone who's really active, going out there, rock climbing, doing whatever, and then you're in a wheelchair. So talk me through how that's been and how you've had to adjust.
So like you say, it was in 2014. That's when it really started to become an issue. So I was a postman at the time, so obviously a really incredibly active job. And before that, I used to do rock climbing. I used to do lots of walking. I used to just walk everywhere, really, instead of using the car. But yeah, when I was sorting the mail in the office, I collapsed and I couldn't move at all.
Totally paralysed.
Yeah, I couldn't even move my tongue.
Oh.
So I was struggling to swallow. I was still breathing. My heart was still beating, but I couldn't communicate with anyone. I could just lay there. They sort of rallied round me and they got the paramedics to come and get me. But yeah, it was the most frightening thing that's ever happened to me. And then it happened repeatedly for the next couple of days. It was like constant, so I was going in and out of complete paralysis, and I was fighting to get myself back to moving again. So I'd be wiggling my fingers, I'd wiggle my toes, and then I could gradually move my limbs again. I could gradually, it was usually my neck and my back were the last things to be able to get moving. So I couldn't.
Over what period of time? How long did it take before you got everything back?
To get it back, it was usually about half an hour. During that time. So these bouts lasted about, it ranged between 1 hour and I think the longest was 4 hours.
4 hours?
At the time. And just as I thought I was getting better, and that these attacks were gradually getting further apart, and then I thought, well, yeah, I think I'm okay. I think I can go home. And I had no diagnosis. They just thought, oh, you're just stressed or exhausted from work, or they didn't really know what was going on. And I hadn't seen a neurologist or anything. So so I was sitting in a chair waiting to get discharged, and I was looking at something on my phone, and then I suddenly realised that I couldn't move my hand, and then my I couldn't move my arm, I couldn't move my whole body, so my head just sort of went down onto my chest. I had my chin on my chest, sitting in this high back chair, and it was excruciating. So I was in that position for 4 hours, and I obviously had issues with how I was treated at the time, because nurses came in and out and they just thought I was like that all the time. Because even now there's a bit of a stigma about functional neurological disorder, in that people think it's to do with someone's mental state.
Really?
It used to be called conversion disorder. So it's like if you don't process your emotions, maybe that can become a physical paralyzing problem, and that kind of thing. And before that, in history, it was called hysteria.
Oh wow!
So obviously, thinking has advanced quite a long way in these recent years.
Yeah.
So people realise that yes, it might not be it's not a physical issue with the brain, but it is to do with the connection between the brain and the body. So that can be interrupted, and
there's no warning when this happens. It just
well, I mean, there wasn't any warning at the time when I first had it, but now I can recognise when.
So it still happens.
Yeah. So I don't get them very often now, but back then it was about 6 months. It was just this constant thing, so I was going in and out of paralysis just constantly and not knowing what was wrong. And I was just at home then. I was just, discharged from hospital. And then since then, luckily it's not as often. In terms of full paralysis,
But you've had some scary moments as well. Not just the paralysis, because there's lots of things you have to deal with. Obviously, as we've kind of listed and we're finding out.
Yeah.
You mentioned about the rock climbing, and there was an incident when you were rock climbing, which sounds frightening.
Yeah, it was pretty horrendous. Because I was about 20 feet up, and I was holding on with my left hand, and there were these children running underneath on the crash mat.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a rope on, so when my left wrist dislocated, I was then hanging and still trying to hold on, but it's really hard to grip if your wrist is dislocated.
Yeah, I would imagine so. How you did it, I have no idea.
Well, it's just willpower, I think, kept me on the rock face, because I just didn't want to fall on the child that was running underneath. And then when there was a gap, I just fell off, and then my wrist just went back in,
like nothing had happened.
Yeah, well, pretty much. I mean, it hurt a lot, but I didn't even get it checked out because it happens so often that I just thought, well, it's normal for me. For my like a party trick was that I'd pop my shoulder out. I could show you now if you like, but no, okay.
I'll think about it.
No, that's fine.
So so I mean, obviously we're getting an idea, and I know we can kind of laugh about some of these incidents and whatever, thankfully, because nobody was hurt other than obviously you had the pain. But there are an awful lot of hurdles for you, a lot of barriers as well. And obviously you need to find a way now to be able to try and still be active in a different way to what you used to be, but still be able to do the things you want to do with your 4-year-old daughter. So we'll have a song, and we'll hear more about your daughter as well, and we'll hear more about what you're hoping to achieve that will hopefully make a big difference to your life as well. So we'll hear more from Daniel T in a moment after George Ezra on BBC Radio Derby.
You better throw a party on the day that I die.
George Ezra, of course, performed that at the Platinum Party at the Palace. Green, green grass on BBC Radio Derby. Loads of great music to keep you going on your Tuesday afternoon. We've got Pepper's Pub Quiz on the way in about 10 minutes' time here on BBC Radio Derby. But I'm in conversation with Daniel T, who is from Mickleover and is hoping that his GoFundMe page, and potentially after this conversation as well, that there are people out there who may want to help him with making a huge difference to his life. Now, he's sitting in front of me now and just been explaining. You're 41, aren't you, Dan?
Yes, yeah. That's right.
So your life became, you were active, and then your life became that you were in a wheelchair. For how long has it been now?
Well, in terms of being in a wheelchair, it's been about 3 years.
So it's pretty recent.
Yeah,
isn't
it is recent for me. But I mean, before then, I was struggling a lot with walking. I can only walk short distances, and then I kind of get stranded places. Especially in like a shopping centre. It would be that I'd become faint and my legs would feel weak, and I didn't really understand what was happening at the time. I just thought maybe I'm a bit, agoraphobic or something like that, like it was a mental state thing, because that's all I'd been told was that I should just chill out kind of thing.
And we do kind of, I guess we're all a bit guilty of kind of being in denial for a time. You notice things and think, I'm just tired. I think we're all guilty of doing that. But I guess you get to a point, as you did, where it's becoming more and more that it's like, hang on, I can't ignore this anymore.
No, exactly. I mean, it's probably the hardest decision I had to make, really, was to get a wheelchair. So I had discussions with my wife about it, and we both had feelings about it. We both realised that it would change things, me getting a wheelchair, but she could fully appreciate that I needed it. And then she became a good sort of advocate for getting a wheelchair. So yeah, it made a massive difference to me to be able to do that, even though to begin with my arms weren't really strong enough to push myself very well.
Yeah, you have to have a good upper body strength, don't you?
Yeah, I've gradually got the ability to push myself more, so those muscles are sort of gradually building up even now, but at the same time I get injuries really easily. If my right shoulder dislocates, then it's really, really painful, and it tends to trap a nerve. My left shoulder pops out all the time, doesn't hurt at all.
And he's already offered to show me it, and I don't think I'm ready for that, Dan. I've not known you long enough.
No, that's fine. I won't do it now.
But you have, I mean, as we've already talked about, you're dealing with Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. Have I said that right?
Ehlers, yeah.
Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. So that's the kind of joint dislocations, of course, is one of the things. Pain constant?
Yes, there's always an underlying pain. So it tends to be, when, say, like if you went to A&E and they say, what's your pain score between 1 and 10? So my base pain score would probably be about a 2 or a 3. And then that fluctuates, so that could go all the way up to 6. And I won't go to A&E because it's just something I live with. So I might up certain muscle relaxant or painkillers, and I just try and deal with it.
I mean, I've just said this to you off air, and I'll say it to you on air as well. You have a really positive attitude. I mean, we've laughed about stuff that obviously a lot of people, if they were dealing with it, would cry a lot.
Yeah.
But you seem to have this positive way. But I imagine that's not all the time. There'll be times when you really struggle to deal with stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, I do have really, really quite bad days. So on certain days, I can't get out of bed because the pain is just too much. And my wife just looks at me and she just says, You're staying in bed today, aren't you? And I'm just like, yeah, And I always tend to say sorry about it. And she tells me not to say sorry. She's like, you can't help it. It just means that she has to sort of pick up the slack in terms of looking after our daughter, in terms of doing a lot of things. And it's the hardest thing in the world to not be able to sort of be that father that I want to be. I want to be doing things with my daughter all the time.
I mean, of course, your daughter, Chloe, I mean, she's only known you in a wheelchair because of the length of time you've had the wheelchair and how old she's 4, isn't she?
She's just about to turn 4, yeah.
Lovely age.
Yeah.
So, and you are obviously an active person anyway, and, your decision to have the wheelchair, you say, has made a massive difference because it's allowed you to feel safer, I guess, to be more active as well.
Yeah.
Now, this off-roading wheelchair, I'd never even heard of an off-roading wheelchair. So tell me how this would change your life.
Well, it's sort of governed by what I feel that my daughter needs, really, because she loves exploring. She likes going in all the sort of rough terrain kind of places, and even if it's just in the park. If it at the moment, I try and do things in a manual chair, and I get exhausted easily. I get, like I say, I get injuries. Like my wrists are pretty bad. My fingers, when I've been gripping too long, cause me problems. So I sort of use the chair to keep fit, and I can keep up with it to a certain extent as long as it's on the flat ground, on tarmac. But if we're going to a park, if we wanted to go for a longer walk somewhere, and just go and see the ducks and walk over grass and things like that, then it's just not practical for me. And I've got this small sort of motor attachment that you can use, but it has to be used on the exactly flat ground. And you can't use it if there's water on the ground or if it's raining.
So that's pretty useless then, really.
It's quite restrictive,
Yeah.
And it was great when I first got it, because I thought, this is great. I've got a little bit more freedom. I can go around the shops in the chair. I can do different things. But now, especially because my daughter, she's always wanting to find new places to explore. She's always saying, "Can we go out? Can we go to the park? Can we go and explore somewhere?"
And you should be able to.
I feel that as a father, I want to do that, and I want to have that. It's like having an independence, so that I can do that with her.
And you don't ask for anything. It's not in your nature to ask, but you've decided you are going to ask for the generosity, good nature of people who might be listening to you right now.
Yes.
So if people do want to help towards you getting this off-roading wheelchair, which would make a huge difference to yours and your daughter Chloe's life, point us in the direction. Where's your GoFundMe page?
So the GoFundMe page is called, it's all one word, Off-Road Explorer. And
Easy to find.
Yeah, it should be relatively easy to Google, I think. And I've got like a Twitter account as well that I sort of send people over from that as well.
Yeah.
I find it so hard to ask for anything for myself, really. I'm so used to raising money for charities and kind of sending people to other GoFundMe pages, for other disabled people, and it still feels a bit odd asking for myself.
Yeah, but when you've done your bit, Dan, then I guess it's your turn to ask for a bit back, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
We wish you all the best with it. Will you let me know how it goes?
Yes, I will, thank you.
And maybe we'll meet up again when you're actually trying out this amazing wheelchair.
Yeah, I'll bring it in to show you.
I'd love it. Dan, great to meet you. Thank you so much for coming in today. That's Daniel T. Of course, you can look him up on Twitter, as he's mentioned, and you can go to that GoFundMe page as well. If you're feeling generous enough to help him try and make a difference to his life. This is Robbie Williams now on BBC Radio Derby.
I sit and wait. There's an